Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge Waiver Wire episode. My name is Steve, and we are moving on to Week 14 here. The Monday night game has not quite happened yet for me, but for you it has. So, any major news that comes out from Tampa Bay and New Orleans that could affect waivers has not happened. I will put a note down in the comments if anything does come up that would drastically change anything. And before we get to that, we are going to just start out with some news and notes as I do for most of my episodes except for the positional rankings videos. This will cover any of the news that happened after or while I was recording for my Saturday show. So basically from Saturday through Monday as of about 5:30 p.m. As far as Matt Stafford and Elijah Mitchell, both of them were placed on IR before the games this weekend. Jameson Williams was activated and used in a limited fashion this weekend. I don't think he had any receptions. I don't know how much he ended up getting used, but he was activated and on the 53-man roster. Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot, unfortunately. Kenneth Walker has a jammed ankle. It's not a sprained ankle, and the reason that you don't hear about this injury too much in football is just because of how it happens, and it's kind of like a crushing of the ankle joint there, not really a spraining in either direction. It's a more of like a compaction, a jamming, if you may say, of the ankles. So don't know at all really at this point what to expect as far as some sort of time frame for his return. So obviously running back waivers, we will see that come up. Then Zach Wilson is set to enjoy his stint as an inactive quarterback while Mike White will be starting against the Bills this weekend. Deshaun Jackson was signed to the Ravens active roster just today, so I don't know. I guess he'll be available. He'll be playing for the Ravens this weekend. He was already with the Ravens. I don't know exactly. I thought he was supposed to play this last weekend, so I don't know exactly what that means except for more money for him. Then Carson Wentz will be backing up Heineke whenever he is healthy enough to return, so Heineke will remain the starter. Hayden Hurst is already doubtful for Week 14, so plan to be without him if you've been relying on Hayden. Zach Taylor thinks that Joe Mixon could be clearing concussion protocol earlier on in this week, so it's looking likely that he should be available for this next weekend's game. Then Lamar Jackson is considered week to week with that, I believe it's a knee injury. And Trevor Lawrence is having an MRI on his foot today on Monday, but the coach did also say that he is trending towards playing, so it sounds like it's a precautionary MRI just to make sure there's not more damage than they suspect. As far as Deonta Foreman goes, he expects to be ready for this weekend. He does have a couple of injuries, but I think the one that would hamper him from actually starting is an ankle injury. So he's said that he's expecting to be playing. But that does, I think, raise the value for Chuba Hubbard as far as waivers go just a little bit this week. Early on in this week, and by the end of the week, he could be pretty much worthless. Then Baker Mayfield is on the waivers, as in the real world waivers. He may not have become official yet, but he is set to be dropped from Carolina today. There's probably going to be somebody who will take him. There's a couple of quarterback needy teams currently. LaFleur expects Romeo Dobbs to be back after the bye, so that will be happening. Aaron Jones should be fine. He came into this game with a shin injury this previous weekend, and apparently he had some weird tackles, and I guess at the end of the game he didn't come back in, but he could have if they needed him, but they just were riding the hot hand. So whatever the case, there was no major injury this weekend, but there was some concerns going forward, and he's expected to be fine, but there are some question marks there for Aaron Jones. Then Cortland Sutton is day-to-day with a hamstring injury, so we'll have to keep our eye on that. Not that anybody's going to be trusting Cortland Sutton this next weekend. As far as the Week 14 buys go, Atlanta, Chicago, Green Bay, Indianapolis, New Orleans, and Washington are all on bye, so that could... that might not be good for me actually this weekend with Washington on bye if Kenneth Gainwell's not ready to go. So that's cool. That's why we hold on to as many freaking running backs as we can in this world. Now, let's get to the waiver wires. And for the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers is really the only one that I'm going to actively say, hey, go right ahead and drop this dude. There are a couple of injuries that have happened this past week, and I'll let you determine. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo you can drop. And you should probably not drop Lamar Jackson would be the common advice there. But who knows? Weird situations happen. So I'm going to just say this ahead of time. I'm not going to be giving you any drops for the running backs or wide receivers in here because every time I put a guy on there who's done poor for the last 5 weeks, they seem to go off. So I could do that as a little bit of a, hey, you should play this guy thing, or I could just do what I was originally doing, and that's not really telling you who to drop because I don't want... There's a lot of nuance to dropping guys who have some sort of value. Like, you have put them on your team for a reason. Just because they haven't been working out for a while doesn't mean that they're totally never going to work out. So if you do have any questions about any ad drops, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'd be happy to give you my 2 cents and, maybe what the advantage and disadvantage would be of that kind of ad drop, whatever the question were to be. So on to the quarterback waivers, and Jared Goff is at the top of this list. I have all of the, for the quarterbacks specifically, I have their schedules, the remaining schedules here, and all in bold are their the schedules for the playoffs. And I have ordered these players mostly in order of thinking more long-term than just next week. So, for instance, at number 2 here, I have Ryan Tannehill. Well, he's going up against Jacksonville, so really, really good option this week. It's still like Jared Goff against Minnesota this week a lot. But as far as this week goes, I do like Ryan Tannehill, but for the remainder of the season, don't love him. He does have the Chargers in the first week of the playoffs, so could be usable there. But then he's got Houston and Dallas there. Houston, a matchup where there's really just not much of a ceiling. Dallas, where there is a ceiling, but there's also a really high floor because of that, or a really low floor because of being up against a good defense that could cause for a very bad day to happen. Let's just move right ahead to Mike White here, who's got a pretty decent set of matchups in the playoffs, and that's what's really enticing against him. As far as Detroit, let's not forget, that's actually been a really good defense for like 5, maybe 6 weeks in a row now. Ever since their bye week, they've come out, and they've been good every single week. They're one really tough matchup in that set of games, but still, it's the NFL, and if you can do something for 5 weeks in a row, no matter who those other teams are, you have to think that there is something there. So I don't think this is the defense of old. So ultimately, for Mike White, really love him for the second and championship game there in the playoffs. As far as Tyler Huntley goes, I don't mind this matchup, going up against Pitt twice here, actually, but for next week, obviously, would like him over Mike White going up against Buffalo. There's a ceiling there against Buffalo, but there's also, once again, a really low floor, similar to a Dallas type of situation. So, Huntley, in the short term, better. Also, Lamar Jackson could be coming back at any point. Technically, he could be back this week, but it is a week-to-week injury, so we are not expecting that. In the short term, really like him this week as far as the playoffs go. Don't really like the Cleveland matchup so much, but I do like the Atlanta, and once again, Pitt probably, we'll see how they do against this game. Divisional games are always a little bit more questionable. Then Kenny Pickett comes along, and there's going to be a lot of those right towards the end of the season, obviously. And just on the other side of the ball there, he's going to go up against Baltimore twice, and then Carolina and Las Vegas in the middle. So really, really juicy set of opponents here for Kenny Pickett, and that's why he makes the list, because I wanted to see more. I want to see him finishing off drives and getting touchdowns, and that really hasn't so much been there. But the kid could turn a corner, and if you're thinking about adding Kenny Pickett onto your team, then you're in some sort of situation with the quarterbacks that, hey, at least he's got a really good set of matchups coming up. And also, after the bye week here, as you can see for Jordan Love, I don't know when the Packers may or may not get eliminated from playoff contention, but I am pretty much expecting them to shut Aaron Rodgers down as soon as that happens. So if that could happen over this bye week, Jordan Love's got the Rams, Miami, and Minnesota to finish up the year. It's a pretty juicy lineup there, and I am, cautiously optimistic, as I think I said last week, about Jordan Love and where that potential could be. Do you think that he could be a better fantasy contributor than Aaron Rodgers has been with his injury? So, that's my feels on the quarterbacks. Let's move on to the running backs. And as I said, I'm done trying to tell you who you could drop, as I have tried to stress. These aren't must drops that I was giving you, but you know what? Screw it. If they're going to keep going off as soon as I bring up their name, then let's just not do that. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I will give you my 2 cents. But at the top of the list here for this week for the waiver wire options for the running back position, I have James Cook and Zonovan Knight up on a tier of their own. I've messed with this. I've put all of these guys in a tier, and then I have left Zonovan Knight out into this tier, or I could leave him out on his own. But regardless, I like these guys. So the only issue here for Zonovan Knight is that I am expecting Michael Carter to be coming back, and I am expecting that to definitely be a shared backfield with Michael Carter. It really was a shared backfield. I think he had 55% of the downs that he was on the field for last week. Probably a higher percentage of usage at the end of the day, but I don't see this same kind of ceiling for Zonovan Knight in a shared backfield for James Cooks in what could potentially become his backfield here down the stretch, and also just on a better offense. Then for my second tier of running backs, I have Jordan Mason, Gus Edwards, Travis Homer / DJ Dallas. So basically I could put them up and down, but I like Travis Homer just a little bit more than DJ Dallas, but I'm unconfident of that. And then Tyler Algier and Kyron Williams to wrap up this tier. And once again, I could have, maybe knocked off these bottom 2 or something like that. It's not a perfect tier break here. But Jordan Mason, I think he has backup value in case of Christian McCaffrey going down. That could be season-winning potential there for him. And unfortunately, won't be as good of an offense now without with Brock Purdy taking the reins there, but whatever the case. Then Gus Edwards is in a situation that really hasn't come to fruition, and J.K. Dobbins could come back anytime here. So, maybe J.K. Dobbins coming back will get that rushing attack going, in which case Gus Edwards might be what we've been hoping for him to end up being, but this rushing attack has just really been pitiful. So I know I'm probably a little bit high on Gus Edwards yet, but if they could get that rushing attack going there in Baltimore, there is so much potential with it. So I just don't want to give up on it completely. But that said, Gus Edwards is a bit of a stash. He's really hard to trust throwing him out there currently. Then Travis Homer, I do think will be in a split with DJ Dallas, so pick your poison there. I don't think either of them are going to be league winners or playoff getter-inners if Kenneth Gainwell misses any time, but there is definitely some potential there. And so, like I said, I lean towards Travis Homer. He's been more efficient when he's been, as far as fantasy points goes, when he's been on the field compared to DJ Dallas, and their usage is very similar. So I just expect him to hot-hand it or split totally. And then Tyler Algier is in a current split. He's become a little bit less used in recent time, but there's definitely some potential there on a team who likes to run the ball. Then Kyron Williams is also sort of a stash at this point, / a can you guess what the game flow of the game is going to be? And this last weekend we would have guessed it would have been a Kyron Williams friendly game flow, but it was not. So especially if John Wolford is not at quarterback for the Rams, which I do think he came out of the game with an injury, then I have a little bit more hope for a Kyron Williams. And just in general, I still like him enough. And these are all players that are under 50% owned, so Cam Akers is over 50% owned. Otherwise, obviously, he would be higher up on the list just based on recent performance. And then Chuba Hubbard gets some value this week, and so if we were to get some sort of immediate news on Deonta Foreman not playing this weekend, obviously he would move up. But just as a speculative ad, if you have a spot for it and you want some sort of upside, I would put him in a similar upside to Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, which means for immediate use, you could pretty much put him up into this Zonovan Knight, right about equal with him. Zonovan Knight, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, Chuba Hubbard, Jordan Mason are all kind of your best options for this week outside of James Cook, who could flop as my number one. It's possible. We've seen Buffalo do weird things with their running backs in the past. And then here's the rest of the list for my running backs. I'll pause it here so you can look at that as far as the order that I like my stashes for the most part. And then one non-stash here in Jerick McKinnon. I think the rest are stashes. Maybe Mike Boone's not necessarily a stash. He's kind of has some value on his own. It's just not a whole lot on that offense in a split workload with Latavius Murray. Now on to the wide receivers, and I'm still done trying to give you some drops here. So this is, all in all this week, really, the waiver wire is not too shabby. There's some options out there. So once again, I'm just going to start out with OBJ at the top of my waiver wire list, because if there is somebody who could be a league winner at the wide receiver position, I think it tends to be him. He should be going on a good team, and we expect it to be Dallas, which is part of why Michael Gallup is actually down here, because if we were to get news that it's not going to be Dallas, or if you do not believe that OBJ is going to Dallas, which is not a guarantee, then I would put Michael Gallup up here at number 1. But otherwise, OBJ, I think, has the most upside. Then DPJ also has some solid upside. Hopefully that quarterbacking gets better, though. That does bring some questions into it. Maybe I should have dropped him down, but he had a pretty decent week this week, so I couldn't really knock him for it, for the bad quarterback play. Then Jameson Williams, wish we could have gotten to see a little bit of him this week. We didn't get a sneak peek at what that is. He's sitting, waiting for me to make a decision on him. I'll have to make that decision soon. I have one too many people right now, so I'll figure that out. But yeah, he's also in that OBJ-ish discussion as potential league winner. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but the potential is there. Darius Slayton is a guy who is wholly undertrusted, and I get it. I don't have him. He's in my waiver wire, but he's been doing good most weeks. He is like the number 1 receiver there for the New York Giants, so that should not be overlooked when he's been producing with that role. Then Matt Collins is on a probably better offense there in Las Vegas, and so once again, he's had some huge, massive weeks. He's had some solid weeks, and he has a pretty low floor that looks ugly, but he's still a solid option week in and week out to throw out there almost no matter what the matchup. Michael Gallup's a good guy to play probably this coming up week. If you're going to need help at the wide receiver position with those bye weeks going on or injury, he would be a great option to pick up, because I don't think OBJ is going to get signed and play this week and be some sort of huge contributor. Then DJ Chark just had a good week there. This all gets a little bit more muddied with Jameson Williams, but I do think it's DJ Chark, Jameson Williams on the perimeter for the Lions when they have 3 receivers out there, and then of course Amon St. Brown and at the slot. And then Corey Davis had 10 targets this weekend, so I think he's done okay with Mike White in the past, so that was nice to see, and that's enough targets to get you right up into, hey, you could play this guy and hope for the best kind of the range. Then Alec Pierce is just right in there. I'm a little less trustworthy, actually, somehow, of that offense in Indy than for the New York Jets, and that's really the separation there. This could almost all be one tier drop top to bottom, but Alec Pierce is the guy who I could not decide which tier to put him into, and kind of just my tier splitter. So in the 1B tier here, or 1C tier here, I have Nico Collins, Jahan Dotson, and Isaiah McKenzie, all guys with some great upside, but who have definite reasons that you could say, I don't trust this guy, I can't play him. But if you were an emergency, I would suggest playing them over most of these guys, maybe matchup dependent a little bit. And then Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore is another mid-tier selection here, bit of a stash tier, because Kadarius Toney, we don't know when that hamstring is going to get better, if it's going to get better, but we saw him do really good in this Kansas City offense when he was healthy for a short period of time. Then Sky Moore, well, Kansas City needs someone to step up and be a threat in that wide receiving room. And the veteran guys outside of Mecole Hardman really haven't done that and been that guy for this offense. So I figure if it's anybody, it's going to be the guy who's has the untapped potential and is still learning the game at this level. So Sky Moore, ultimate stash in one of the best offenses with probably the single best quarterback currently in the league, throwing to him. I don't mind taking that chance if you're pretty, locked down at wide receiver or in an emergency situation in a deeper league. Then these are the rest of the guys who, in any given week, if you must, you could throw them out there and hope for the best. And of course, like tonight, Julio Jones could make an argument to be moved up, depending on mostly how many targets he gets tonight. If he gets less than 5 targets, keep him down here. If he gets 2 targets, drop him down on this list. And if he does really good, move him up. What's the ceiling for Julio Jones, since he is available for people? The ceiling is probably right around Alec Pierce. Yeah, right in that Alec Pierce territory, a little bit drifting between tiers here. Now let's move on to the tight end waiver options. And yes, you can drop Kyle Pitts. You don't need to keep him in an IR spot or anything. He's not coming back. So why do over 50% of leagues still have them on their rosters? Just get rid of them. Nobody cares that you once upon a time had Kyle Pitts and can't play him anymore. Take him off your team. Then also, you could check for Dallas Goedert, who has said that he will be coming back immediately when he gets off of IR. So that is coming up. I wasn't sure if it's like after this week or if it would be for in 2 weeks, but it's coming up, so it wouldn't be a bad stash if he's available. And a little bit more widely available is Darren Waller, but he's also a much longer shot to be coming back. I do believe the head coach has said he's probably not coming back immediately from IR, which I think would be like this week. He'll be available to come off of IR if they choose to take him off and start the 21-day window. But it doesn't sound like he'll be playing this weekend. Yeah, it was week 14 for Darren Waller. And it doesn't sound like he's going to be ready to go this weekend. Then Greg, for my tight end, Greg Dulcich could probably be up on a tier on his own, but it's been a little too I can't trust him that much yet due to one great week. But there's so much to like. There's a reason that the experts had him up in their top 12 this past weekend, between how that offense operates and what we've seen from him as far as target shares for that offense, etc. And just the state of tight end positions. So Greg Dulcich, a great get, could be a winning helper on some fantasy championship teams. Then Evan Ingram, Noah Fant, Tyler Conklin, Daniel Bellinger, Foster Moreau are all guys who are roster worthy. They're good bets for one reason or another to have out there, and just trust them any week, any matchup, and hope that it works out for you. They're fine. A little less trustworthy in my opinion, a little lower floor for the most part than these guys are going to be Juwan Johnson, who is not playing this weekend. So I don't know if that injury is going to be longer term. It's very possible it is. I might have him a little high, but just due to his performance, if he's healthy, when healthy, I do like him over these two by a touch. Hunter Henry, though, and Taysom Hill, also fine plays if you need. I would just prefer generally to have one of these guys on my team already. Then Trey McBride, Chig Okonkwo are more speculative ads than anything. I wouldn't want to be running them out there currently, but there is potential with these two to be something more than these guys, whereas Logan Thomas, technically Cade Otton there is, but he needs an injury in front of him in order to be usable. But Logan Thomas, Cade Otton, and then Robert Tonyan and Mike Gesicki, primarily these three, kind of at this point seem to have a ceiling of the Taysom, this area. So that's why I have these two above them. And that is it for my waiver wire video. I hope there was some help for you. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask. And also, pinned down in the comments would be any major changes due to anything that happens this weekend. No. On Monday Night Football tonight, I don't know that there's much that could impact a whole lot on these waivers, which is why I'm filming this video a little earlier than normal. So peace out. Thank you so much, and take care. I hope you won your week. Bye-bye.